right now, even if they have another Make It Rain that lands perfectly, this is still gonna connect. So for today's video, we are revisiting Lucian and Azir. It's been a long time since I've played the deck archetype. It's a lot more refined at this point. So that's what we're gonna do. As always, reminder, deck code in the video description, link to Mobalytics in the video description. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time or you watch but you just haven't clicked the button. And I use time tags, so if you want to see the deck explanation, that'll be at the end of the video. You can jump there first, or you can just jump straight to the games. And speaking of those games, let's check them out now. Today we're going to give the old Lucian Azir deck a whirl. It's been a long time since I've revisited it, and it is the kind of deck that when it works, when everything's going your way, it's capable of some pretty insane high rolls. Now this is a bit of a clunky start because we'd love to get this Lucian down on 2, but against Twisted Fate Swain, you also at that point would have to assume they're going to have, you know, some form of removal. So we're going to go ahead and try to go wide at 3 mana. They actually could be playing Make It Rain with a deck like this, but we do have the Ranger's Resolve ready to go. And in this case, yeah, I think in this case we still go ahead and do this. We want to get rid of this keg as well. That's gonna make our Ranger's Resolve a bit awkward at some point. I would prefer to obviously not make this trade until after a Lucian was down, but nature of the beast, sometimes you don't get to decide when things are happening, so. We're gonna still play the Lucian because we'd like to set ourselves up for an open attack. The rest of our hand is again a bit clunky. We have all of our late game cards. Now this deals 2 to an enemy, so we're gonna go ahead with this. Now with 1 mana left, they could have a flock. A flock would obviously not be great for us, or they could just have additional options here as well. Hey look, it's a flock. All right, we're gonna go ahead and drop our Remembrance then to remember our fallen Lucian. That's not a bad roll.
Never lost a fair game. Played with something.
They're gonna go with a Twisted Fate red card, which, you know, as far as red cards go, it only removed 1 unit, so that's not half bad. Oh. I think we're gonna go ahead and play the Marshal here. We could theoretically, I guess, save for a sharp sight play, but again, 1 mana available. They could flock this regardless of what's going on, but I think we just try to soak as much as possible. And then this next round, we have to make the decision about whether or not we want to use this sharp sight when we run over TF, or do we want to play the Cythria and just not run over the TF. That is the question. I think we're going to be a bit aggressive here. I feel like this is actually the incorrect play. I think taking the open attack and trying to remove the TF is potentially better, because 5 cards available, lots of mana. You have to assume this is just going to die, right? But it's at 4 of 9 now. If we swing here, we could theoretically grab the spider, and this would still be surviving while getting rid of a blocker. Right now, it's at 4 of 9. It could go to 5 of 9 after the start of next turn. I'm just trying to decide whether or not we want to pull it now just to force their hand. I think you pull it now to force their hand. I expect them to have an answer one way or the other, but I think you pull it now. If we wait one round, you could maybe catch them by surprise with a relentless pursuit, but these are those cards we were talking about, those resources available. Oh, they're just gonna let it go. Okay. That was not the outcome I was expecting, but if they're sitting on something like, well, in this case, it's a Scorched Earth. I was gonna say like a Flock, but Scorched Earth as well. Maybe they just wanted to get rid of the Cythria. The Azir is certainly welcome. And they continue to draw cards. I think we're gonna slow play this round a bit. And then when we play Azir next round, that will level and we'll have the mana available for shenanigans. The stun not doing much for them here. It just gives them a body as a potential blocker. Okay. So now the question becomes, do we still use our mana for the combat tricks, or because we top decked a ranger, is the ranger the play? I feel like it's actually the ranger because the multiple attacks with the Azir double Marshal are going to be relevant. So this does not kill this unit yet. I say yet because obviously they could still have plenty of ways to deal 1 damage, but we get at least 1 attack with this 6/1 Sand Soldier. Wow, and they got lucky. Huh? They are in fact gonna connect. Their gambit paid off. Now we know we want to attack with at least these, but given that they're at 4 health with only 3 mana, I think you just send everything because we've whittled them away. Normally you wouldn't want to like risk your Azir getting hurt in Scorched Earth, but right now, even if they have another Make It Rain that lands perfectly, this is still gonna connect. So this should be safe. Huh? I mean, I was close. It's not Make It Rain, it's a Lotus, but again, we still connect. So there's 1 game down. Let's see if we can repeat that success, play another game, and have some fun along the way. Okay, so we are up against the Dragon Targon list. I think these go back. We like this as a nice one too, traditionally. Binding Assault is a better 2 because then this on 3 gets us a decent amount of value out of Valor at times. So we'll see if we can pull this off. Some of these are actually running Dragon Chow. Yep, there it is. So I think they were just trying to decide whether or not they wanted to develop it or not. And they are going to take this block, which is interesting because this tells me they might be trying to eat this before, or they're just using it as a speed bump, but they have to assume I'm gonna be able to challenge this when it comes back to my attack round. So we could see something like Herald here into Shyvana on 4, which would be awful for us. Well, it'd be Shyvana on 3. But we could dodge that with an open attack. Now the nice thing, if Valor is successful here, that gives us 2 units with the Challenger for potentially trying to eat this. The rest of our hand is okay. It's a bit suspect. No Lucian, no Azir, no Deus. Those are like your top 3 cards in this list, unfortunately. All right, so there is the Azir, which now means we have to consider not taking the open attack, and I think that it's worth it in this instance because they didn't play a Herald. So we know that there's not any dragons they can play on 3. And so we can do this to get the extra attacker out of it. And then when we attack again, it's going to be Fleet Feather that tries to do the job because we want to try to protect this. Now at 3 mana here, they could have a number of things to save this, right? Could be Sharp Sight. They could have like a single combat if they want to prioritize that, but they're going to let that go as well, and that's good for us. I expect something to come down here. All right, so there is a Shyvana. With the attack, it goes up to a 4. So if they had an attack, I'm just trying to make sure that they won't have with strikes or anything, something that kills our Azir here. So I actually think we're gonna go Fleet Feather and then potentially into a Bright Steel, but I think we're just gonna skip this. Potentially into a Bright Steel next turn, or we could play it now and then go with a Ranger, but we already have the Scout attack, so I think we just pass and bank the spell mana. The benefit to playing Bright Steel is it means we could actually level our Azir next round. Bright Steel comes down this round. That takes him to 7. Next round, this comes down. That takes him to 8. Scout attack is 9 from the Sand Soldier, and then the following attack is 10. So that would be the argument there. We don't have to worry about go wide board sweepers like in the traditional sense. But I still think you don't want to necessarily overextend either. Again, this Valor's mostly about just trying to get our Azir to level. So it strikes twice, and that's really important because it'll be 1 strike, 2 strike, and so this Ranger's Resolve should still save us. because it should do 2 twice. Bit of a visual bug, but that's okay. And then even though we have 2 scout units, we just attack with the barrier one on the first one to make sure that we get the damage on this Shyvana. Actually, because of the concerted strike, they already have it, don't they? So the potential concern was you didn't want them to gem after this, but since they already have it, I think you go ahead and do it anyway. So they'll have this window to gem it, but we can push a lot of damage. Azir is gonna level, and again, fleet feather is the one you want to do the work here, just because we want to save at least 1 valor for the attacks. Now it's a shame because if we had a rally effect right now, this would basically be game. But we sadly do not have a rally effect. We do have them down to 2. All right, so Screeching Dragon is problematic because it means we're going to lose our Azir. I don't know, we could lose the Valor, I suppose. But I expect us to lose the Azir. Let's kind of wait and see what they do first. We'll probably develop a Grizzled Ranger after combat so that we have the scouts for the open attack, and then we can play Cytherea afterwards and go for the second attack, since we are going to have a bit of a diminished board state. If they gem this and still swing with both, I think we'll actually use a sharp sight and still block to get rid of that. Oh, wow. Yeah, here's the gem. I was gonna say they're not doing that, huh? So the reason we want to do this is because, again, if we're gonna be playing our Grizzled Ranger after the fact, having 2 attackers on a scout attack next round means we're more likely to get this lethal in, and because they have no mana, we know they can't respond. So here we go with a ranger, and so we have the open attack with this pulling it away so that this maybe connects, and then we still also have Cytherea and the second attack. So you do it this way just to force them to use whatever it is they might have. Right, so they single combat, it trades, they get the opportunity to play a blocker. It's the Fangs. Fangs is actually good enough to potentially save them if they pulled an Equinox here. So we're gonna play Cytherea and then wait and see what they got with that 1 mana. Moon Silver onto something, onto a goat. Okay, they're gonna survive, but they have to lose both of these units along the way. Now we're starting to get to the late game though, so this is a deck that absolutely can still come back from this. Again, I kind of harken back to the 1 round where we just really wanted a rally effect, but now we have found it. And this is great because we can play this first and then the scout will give us another rally effect as well. So if they go greedy here with their 8 mana and they play something like Eclipse Dragon, that's basically game. But instead of being greedy, we're gonna go slow, wait and see what they do. Three cards and a gem against our 2 bodies, and our desire to attack more. Right now, given that it's taken them some time, I would suspect that they are trying to figure out how they navigate themselves into a winning position off of top deck. I would wager that they don't have enough here to survive, and so they were trying to get themselves into a position to win off of a top deck. And that's really good for them, but again, it's going to allow us to, I think, be in a winning position unless they top deck some healing, because we're going to get multiple attacks here again, right? So the ranger goes and then both of the other units go, which should eat up their board for them to survive. And then we should have one left any way you look at it to threaten lethal. So we'll have to wait and see what the series of events becomes. That was a great answer. They haven't passed yet, but they have no mana, no cards in hand, so I think they were just trying to decide how they wanted to tackle this. This is interesting because this actually allows me to keep this as a scout unit. So I can block here. And still attack with this twice, but this stays as a scout unit, which opens me up for even more potential this next round if they do in fact top deck healing in the form of like a star shaping or something, right? So we get this attack again, it comes back to us, we go with the open attack. So it's just going to come down to what they top deck, but because they let me keep this as a scout with that attack, I get to attack, they have to answer, they don't have the answer, but then we could have kept going. So there we go. That's 2 games down. Let's go take a look at the deck list. So now that we have a couple of games under our belt, let's dive into the meat of the list. This is a list that's been very popular since the launch of Empires of the Ascended because Azir is fun to play and Lucian is one of the better pairings with Azir because they have a lot of natural synergy because of ephemeral units and how they work with Lucian. So starting with Dunekeeper, one of the best 1-drops in the game. It's 2 bodies for Azir. The ephemeral unit dies, which helps to level up Lucian. It's aggressive, natural inclusion. Fleet Feather Tracker is the other 1-drop because early on you need to kind of control the board, but you also want to generate pressure, and this is kind of the best of both worlds. The reason you need to control the board is because this traditionally isn't the sort of list that allows you to win on unit value. So what I mean by that is, like, you play a deck like Overwhelm, you play all these big bodies and you get a bunch of 2-for-1 trades because your units are just naturally bigger. This list is less about that and kind of more about swingy turns and combos, specifically with the Sand Soldiers. And so early on against other aggro decks, you want to get rid of their best units and kind of slow them down, and Fleet Feather is one of the best ways to do that. One of Ranger's Resolve, I only like this as a one of because it's great against stuff like Withering Whale, and it can save your Lucian from things like Avalanche, but you've got a lot of 1 health units in this list as well, and it will not save them from an Avalanche, and so I don't run more than 1 copy of this because it's a bit situational. Similarly, I only run 2 copies of Shapestone because I'm only running the Deus as far as landmarks go. Now the +1/+1 is obviously still fine at times. It can save a unit, but the upside to this is a bit limited because of only 3 Deus, so I run this as a 2 of. Blinding Assault. This is Valor. Valor is a Fleet Feather tracker with Scout. So you like Scout because you want multiple attacks. That helps out your Azir, it helps out your Deus, but also you still want to control the board, and so Valor is the upgraded Fleet Feather tracker. Bright Steel is beautiful. We love Bright Steel because not only does it protect your challenge units, right? Your Valor, your Fleet Feather can get trades and survive, but also defensively, if your opponent has the attack token, they play a challenger, you can then play this to protect your Lucian, buy yourself time to get him leveled up and get your combos up and running. Deus. Deus is one of the top 3 cards in the deck in my opinion. If I had to describe the deck, the core, it's Deus, Lucian, Azir. Everything else just facilitates the deck. So Deus is just Azir without a body, but sometimes that's even better because it's harder to remove, specifically against control decks. If you can get like 2 Deuses going, at that point they're going to be forced to avalanche like 1 unit at a time, and you can still generate pressure. So Deus is important for that. It's also important because, again, it's a consistent source of those Sand Soldiers, which will help you to level up your Azir, keep triggering your Azir, get those bonuses from Azir, so on and so forth. So Deus is great. Lucian, this is honestly a unit you don't attack with very often, unless you can kind of read the situation. It's more like you play him as an aura, but you're trying to get him leveled up so that, again, once you get to the point where you're attacking with Sand Soldiers, every time the Sand Soldiers die, you get a free rally out of it. And so this is the way that you start getting lots of attacks per turn. Sharp Sight. This might be the biggest shock, and I don't mean because I'm playing it, but because I'm only running 2 copies, and that's because this list is the kind of list where I want to run like 3 of on a number of things, and you can't fit it all. And given how mana intensive the early rounds are, I was finding it hard to always leave the mana open for Sharp Sight because you need to be aggressive and then finish people off with your combos. And so this is currently only a 2 of. 3 of Azir, 1 of Cataclysm because this is removal. But if you play this on a Scout and it's not your turn, right? If your opponent starts with the attack token, you can Cataclysm on one of your Scouts and it's like a rally for you because the Scout effect will trigger on your opponent's turn, or at least the turn where they have the attack token. And so you get removal and a rally. So 1 of Cataclysm, 2 of Old School Relentless Pursuit because we like attacks. Grizzled Ranger, another Scout for the Cataclysm, another Scout for Azir, for the Deus. You know the drill. Ranger is also nice because the next card on our list here is Inspiring Martial. And so if you play Ranger once this is already in play, this one gets buffed. And then if they block the Scout version and it becomes the Badger Bear has again entered play, and so that gets buffed. So a little bit of synergy between these two. Inspiring Martial is here because it's a big 4/6 body, so it blocks pretty well. And obviously the +2/+0 on all of your Sand Soldiers over and over is a pretty big deal. And then this is, again, one of those situations where I wish I could run 3 ofs of both. I'm currently running 2 Cytherea, though I know a lot of folks run 3, and I don't blame them. But I'm doing 2 Cytherea, 3 Remembrance because I've been seeing a lot of aggro mirrors, and Remembrance gives me a shot at Moose, which can really blow the game wide open at times, but it also gives me a shot at like Radiant or even just the 5/4 Challenger. And with so many trades occurring back and forth, this is also usually much cheaper than 6 mana to play. So I just really like having the Remembrance in my arsenal right now, but you can't fit all this into the deck, so you have to make cuts somewhere. And so unfortunately, that's 2 on Cytherea and 2 on Sharp Sight. I wish I could jam more in. If I was going to, it would probably be at the cost of Ranger's Resolve, but I don't think that 0 is correct either. I don't know. This is interesting because, as I said before, the 3 most important cards are just Deus, Lucian, Azir, and everything else facilitates it. And so you can play with the numbers. It's not fully exactly refined cookie cutter yet. There's still some flexibility in the list, but this is the version that I run. As always, reminder, deck code in the video description, link to Mobalytics in the video description. If you have not yet, please consider subscribing. That's it for today's video. So if you made it this far, love you, I appreciate you, thank you for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.